Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Egan. I am the Vice Chairman of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Rangeley. 2 o'clock, so it looks like we can get going. Steve Philbrick had a conflict today, so he could not Zoom in and be a part of today's meeting. So we are meeting today regarding the request for proposals for the Rangeley Region Broadband Initiative program. We are getting started. And just for the sake, all right, looks like we've got, all right. Joe, any adjustments to the agenda?
No adjustments, Madam Vice Chair.
We're going to move on to old business then. So under A, we have a pre-proposal meeting for the request for proposals. And I will turn this section over to Joe.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I'm Joe Roach, the town manager for the town of Rangeley. We do have a pretty good audience here today. Thank you all for coming. As Cindy noted, the first item under old business is a pre-proposal meeting for an RFP that the town and the surrounding plantations released recently. So what I intend to do, it's not a very long RFP for those of folks who have seen it. I just am going to probably read it out loud and then ask if there are any questions. So fiber optic network construction, fiber to the premise, released February 23. So the towns of Rangeley, Sandy River Plantation, Rangeley Plantation, and Dallas Plantation seek proposals cooperatively from applicants to build, operate, and maintain assets to provide a fiber optic network directly to homes and businesses in these communities. And I assume everybody's familiar with the communities. We all are in the same region. We all abut each other in one shape or another. The goal is for all residents and businesses to have access to high-speed internet with speed options up to 1 gig up or down, with the capacity to increase speed as technology develops. So, 10 years from now, 1 gig may be slow. System designed for 99.9% uptime, no data caps or bandwidth throttling, bundling options with video and or phone. We're asking that folks provide a summary to include the following: total estimated cost of the project, identify any waived fees, funding options for the communities to include, but not limited to, joint or individual participation of 1 to 4 communities. Cost apportionment for each town or plantation, funding gap resolutions for the first year, identify all possible fees, including network operation fees and user fee up to estimations, maintenance and repair of network. Please include information on emergency unscheduled maintenance. The timeline we're looking at is not to exceed 24 months. That's for construction. Project managers and project references should be included. Installation of underground fiber as necessary on the premise or otherwise is something that's important to us. And we like a plan for decommissioning or updating the physical plant at the end of its useful life. So for the schedule, which is on page 2, the RFP was released on February 23rd. We are all participating now in the mandatory pre-proposal meeting. Questions are due by March 15th. Questions and answers will be posted to the town of Rangeley's website, which is listed here, by the 17th of March. Responses are due no later than 2 o'clock on March 22nd of this year, and they'll be emailed in confidence to my email address, which is below. Review will begin on March 24th, and it will be the delegates that do the review. So the delegates are in the room now. And the delegates are, in case you're wondering, for those folks who are just joining us today, are folks from the elected leadership of each community. So there's an elected person from each of those towns that I listed in the beginning. I'm a contact. My phone number is there, and email address. And as you might expect, all towns reserve the right to accept or reject any or all proposals. So that is the RFP. I would If it's okay with you, Cindy, open the floor for questions.
Absolutely.
Any questions on the RFP? Please address Cindy Egan with your question.
Just bear with me. I've got 2 pages in my gallery here of folks that are participating, and I'm not, at this point, not seeing any raised hands. Looks like it was a well-written RFP then.
We have one hand, Cindy, from, looks like Dean.
Yes.
Oh,
Go
yes. Go ahead, Dean.
Yes. Good afternoon. Excuse me. Just had a frog. Are you planning to self-fund all of this work for building the project?
Very good question. The answer to that is we're open to all proposals at this point. We're really seeing what the market has to offer. I think that's how I would answer that question.
Any other questions at this time before we move on to the next agenda item? Yep, go ahead, Rebecca.
Can everybody kind of do a roll call of their name and which company they're with, so I can take note of that?
Looks like I overlooked that part of the agenda. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, so looking at the top here, it looks like I have someone with a name of Galaxy Tab A. I don't see a name for.
Cindy, how about if there are folks in the room that would like to submit a proposal, this is a mandatory meeting. So if you are interested in submitting a proposal, please state your name and the company that you are with.
Chris Lynch, Matrix Design Group.
Chris Lynch, Matrix. Thank you, Chris.
Mark Rushy, Tilson.
Mark Grushy. Please spell the name of your company, sir.
Tilson.
Tilson. Got it. Thank you.
Tom Kirby, Outer Reach Broadband. We're working with Tilson.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, this is Mark Merla, and then also Dean Mishke is on. We're both from Finley Engineering.
Good afternoon, Mark. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Good afternoon. It's Jeff Nevins from Consolidated.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Excellent. Anyone else in the room?
Sean Harmon from Certex Broadband.
Hey, Sean.
How are you?
Excellent, sir. Could you spell the name of your company for the record, please?
Sure, it's SERTEX Broadband Solutions.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Avery Thomas from Coastline Wireless.
Hi, Avery.
Hey.
Avery Thomas, Coastline Wireless. Do we miss anybody? Good. Thank you all for doing that. So are there any questions for today other than what we've already heard? Okay.
I did have a question. Are you working with Georgetown at all? Were they a part of this?
Georgetown?
Yep.
The town of Georgetown in Maine?
Yes.
We have not worked with them,
Okay.
although I've made a note to look into that. Okay, Cindy, I think that's it for that portion.
Okay. All right. So moving on to 3B. Also handed out was a draft interlocal agreement. This particular agreement was between the towns of East Millinocket, Medway, and Millinocket. And this would be a document for the delegates to review with your fellow assessors and make note of any areas of concern or suggested changes. And we can certainly arrange a time in the future for the for all of us to meet via Zoom and go over the document and see what changes each town wishes to make. Are there any questions or comments at this point regarding the document from the delegates?
Hi, Cindy. It's Linda from Dallas Plantation.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. The Millinocket situation is slightly different than ours, with a lot of grant funding in place and building from scratch. So I was referring more pointedly at Maine Municipal's interlocal cooperative agreements and the legal liabilities and financial liabilities. And in discussion with our assessors, we still come back to the financial allocation and how that would be determined, as well as the bond issue and who would take the bond. And if it would be agreeable to the other plantations to move forward in a similar fashion that we do with the school district. So that's where we're at.
Okay. I see Scott Milbury from Rangeley Plantation. Scott, anything at this point in time?
Not right now, just listening.
Okay, thanks. Do we have anyone in from Sandy River Plantation?
Yes, Joanne Taylor is here for Sandy River.
Hi, Joanne.
I didn't have any questions.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure everyone had an opportunity. So we'll coordinate a meeting down the road and to answer and address these questions as they come up. Anything else before we move on to the next agenda item? All right, not seeing anybody. All right, number 4, new business. Any new business, Joe?
No, no business, no new business.
And it looks like we've already scheduled the next meeting, which is March 24th at 2 p.m.
Correct.
And so and you'll note, as you noted, for this meeting, the Zoom IDs are on each agenda. Anything else before we close the meeting?
I have a question, Cindy. It's Linda. Sorry.
Go ahead, Linda.
When we receive proposals, will the companies be distinguishing what parameters they're using for making their proposal if they're putting forth prices as to what data set they're using for the plantations in Rangeley town?
Are these the per customer costs that you're asking about, Linda?
No, I'm asking what parameters they're going to use to establish their proposal. What have we made publicly available? Or what is publicly available to establish an accurate proposal?
Greater Franklin Development spent some considerable amount of funds mapping out the areas of need in this particular region. And that's at this point what is available to all of the businesses in order for them to draft and respond to this RFP.
I understand that that was done several years ago, and I know we've had a number of comments on the inaccuracy of the data that are presented on the seawall maps. For instance, Dallas Plantation is shown with Nile Brook and Geneva Bog Brook as roads, and City Pond Road and Sandy River is also listed. So when you're considering mileage for a company that would come in and have to run all new lines and get right of way on poles and whatnot, that shouldn't be taken into consideration. And I was wondering if each of the municipalities would care to review what was presented and perhaps make comment to update those maps on our local knowledge.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, these maps were presented at a quarterly meeting to the town of Rangeley and the plantations, and I'm sure they would certainly welcome any corrections or updates.
How would we affect that?
Charlie Woodworth was our facilitator at the time. I'm not sure. I don't see him. Yeah, we can certainly find out who would receive the proposed corrections and get that right out. Scott?
Yeah, Range Plantation as well had a lot of mistakes in the last one. They showed power lines, but there weren't any, and they showed updating lines had already been updated to the new fiber. So I think that's a very good point Linda makes, to make sure they're bidding what actually needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Scott.
Can I make a suggestion? This is Linda again, that we have a look at the seawall maps that had been used that are now considered to be outdated or in need of changes, and get those back to Joe so that it could be incorporated in future discussion, or just in his ability to respond to any of the companies considering making proposal.
That's a great idea. Check for another show of hands here.
Cindy, there was a note. I lost it. Let me pull it up and read it aloud. Okay. It's from Sean. The maps were not included in the RFP. Can those be made public for the bidders? They can. I don't know how soon they'll be updated. But yes, any maps that were referred to here, if they're public, we can make them available on the website.
Thank you.
Is that it for notes, Joe?
Cindy,
One more.
One follow-up note from Avery. The maps would be great on the website. Thank you.
Cindy, may I make a suggestion or question?
Absolutely.
Laura Reynolds. I'm just wondering if it might make sense for the delegates to have a meeting before the 24th to perhaps do this updating of the maps, as well as to get further along the question of who will be going for the bond and how we will proceed with or without an interlocal agreement.
Are the other delegates okay with that? Joanne, Linda?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. Scott?
Yeah,
All right, so we'll get, we've got a board meeting Monday. I'll touch base with, normally Steve Philbrook is the delegate, so we'll get some suggested dates emailed out to everyone. And see, hopefully, get a date that works for most of us. Thank you, Laura. Any other comments before we close the meeting? Seeing no hands. All right. Well, thank you all for zooming in and your interest in the project. And we will look forward to your responses. Have a good day, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Daryl, hang on for a few minutes.